everyone, and welcome back to another edition of BritBeat TV. If you've tuned into BritBeat TV before, you'll know that we have been reviewing iconic Beatles instruments from our BritBeat gear collection. At BritBeat Performances, one of the most frequently asked questions we get is about our instruments. People love to know what guitars and instruments we use on stage to recreate the authentic Beatles sound. Now, in previous episodes, we have reviewed a few of the Beatles' guitars, but today we'd like to focus on Ringo and his predecessor, Pete Best, and take a closer look at the drums. In order to do this, we're going to focus specifically on the Beatles' snare drums. Now, the first snare drum we see here is a 5.5 by 14-inch white marine pearl Premier Royal Ace snare drum from the Premier Outfit 54 kit. This drum is not a reissue snare. It is a vintage snare from 1960 with the same specifications as Pete Best. Now, Pete had received his Premier drum kit from his mom, Mona Best, during Christmas of 1959. Mona had purchased the kit at Rushworth's music store in Liverpool. She had encouraged Pete to play drums since she had started the Casbah Coffee Club in Liverpool. Her idea was to have a club for her sons to meet local friends and listen to popular music of the day. Now, what makes Pete's Premier drum kit unique is that it is essentially the first Beatles drum kit. In fact, Pete used his Premier kit when he auditioned for the Beatles on August 12, 1960, just days before the Beatles' first trip to Hamburg, Germany. Now, this kit would ultimately go on to be used on countless gigs at clubs in Germany on the Reeperbahn Strip, the Cavern Club in Liverpool, and some of the Beatles' very first studio recordings. And according to drum enthusiasts, the Premier Royal Ace snare drum is considered to be one of England's finest wood shell snare drum. Now, here's a sample of its sound. Now, BritBeat had the pleasure of performing with Pete Best in 2005 for the 40th anniversary of the Beatles at Comiskey Park in Chicago. It was great fun to perform live with him and to chat with him about Premier and Ludwig drums. Now, after Pete's dismissal from the Beatles in 1962, Ringo brought in a new sound and a new look. At the time, Ringo was performing with a 1960 Premier drum set, including a 4 by 14-inch Premier Royal Ace Piccolo snare drum in the mahogany duroplastic finish, also known as the root beer swirl finish. Now here we have that very same model snare drum like Ringo used when he joined the Beatles. This is an actual vintage 4 by 14-inch Premier Royal Ace snare from 1960. Ringo had purchased his Premier drum set from Hessie's music store in Liverpool. Ringo specifically requested this color drum finish as he seemed to prefer and enjoy drums with a swirled finish. Ringo's Premier snare was used exclusively until after the Please Please Me album. The drum's unique tone is undoubtedly a result of its smaller size. Take a listen to its concise yet distinctive beat. Now, one interesting fact not commonly known is that Ringo utilized unique drum techniques to muffle the sound of his snare drums. And before he used tea towels in the later years, Ringo would on occasion use a harmonica case or a pack of cigarettes on the drum head as seen in certain photos. Here's an example of that. Now, finally, we move over to the most well-known Ringo snare drum, the 1963 Ludwig Oyster Black Pearl Jazz Festival. Our snare in the BritBeat collection is actually a re-wrapped Oyster Black Pearl vintage 1964 snare, but with the same appointments and specifications as Ringo's. Ringo's snare has so much history to it, it's been nicknamed the Holy Grail of snare drums. And in 1963, Ringo, with Beatles manager Brian Epstein, visited Drum City, a music store in central London, looking to upgrade his drum kit. And during that visit, Ringo happened upon a drum finish color swatch catalog, and he liked the color that he saw, oyster black pearl. The kit he was referring to was none other than the Ludwig Downbeat kit in the oyster pearl finish, and it became Ringo's signature kit. Now, Ringo used his Ludwig kit almost exclusively all the way from 1963 in England to the Ed Sullivan Show and onward through to the Beatles' final recordings. One interesting note is that our Ludwig snare drum happens to have the same feature layout as Ringo's, which adds to its uniqueness. It has a keystone badge centered between its baseball bat muffler and the P83 strainer, which makes this a rare and hard-to-find vintage item. Now here's a taste of its classic sound. We have spent hundreds of hours dissecting Ringo's drums to recreate an authentic look and sound at BritBeat shows. It was in 1999 that we visited the Chicago Drum Show to learn more about Ringo's Ludwig gear, and there we met Mr. William F. Ludwig II, the son of the founder of Ludwig Drums. We had a wonderful chat with him and had an opportunity to hear about his historic meeting with Ringo back in 1964. Now, behind me is a picture of Mr. Ludwig II meeting with Ringo in 1964 and gifting Ringo a gold-plated snare drum. This calendar picture was personally signed for BritBeat by Mr. Ludwig, as you can see here. Well, thanks again for joining us today. We hope that you were able to get a closer look at the Beatles' drum history told through the drums. We wish everyone a very Merry Christmas and a safe and healthy New Year. We'll be back with future episodes soon, and we look forward to seeing you in 2021. Peace and love.